montage of different people, or you can choose to have the speaker only version. You'll see there's a icon in the right hand top corner of your screen saying speaker view or gallery view, so select accordingly. Secondly, all of your microphones are muted, but we will open the microphones of those who wish to speak from the floor during the discussion session. However, please don't try yourself to unmute your microphone, because often with the delay you end up muting it again and it gets a little bit complicated. Thirdly, during the open discussion section, we want to get in as many people as we possibly can to either make a comment or to put a question. But we are strictly limiting this to 1 minute, and we really don't want to end up in any difficulties. So please stick to this 1 minute so we don't have to cut mics or get into any of that. Fourthly, the chat is open. I'm sure you're all familiar with the chat now, so please feel free to make any comments that you wish to. If you wish to intervene during the discussion, on the middle of your screen at the bottom, you will see there's a participants icon. If you click on there, in the bottom right-hand corner of the window, you will see there is a raise hand button. So please feel free to use that. But finally, we will be monitoring the chat and the screens constantly and very carefully. We know that far-right extremists have been trying to hijack meetings of this sort. So if we catch any of that, we will obviously shut screens, microphones, and make sure they can't carry on trying to disrupt the meeting. We aim to finish by 8:30 at latest. Colleagues, just let me begin formally by thanking all of you for taking part. I can already see it's a terrific participation. As you know, I want to be clear about the focus. As you know, during this lockdown, there's been an explosion of online events, and there's been many sessions on the general situation in Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and the situation of the Kurds generally. We will, of course, be touching on all of these issues. It's impossible to discuss Abdullah Öcalan without touching on all of those issues. However, the real focus of this online rally is on Abdullah Öcalan himself and the need to build the campaign to obtain his freedom, to play his part in a new peace process after 21 years of solitary confinement in Turkey. And our thinking was that in this terrible, difficult situation that we're all facing with COVID, we certainly wanted to rally our forces as well. And we didn't want to let this difficult situation fragment or weaken us. Never has international solidarity been more important, and never has it been more important than on this particular issue now. The trade union campaign was established in April 2016 at a meeting in the Houses of Parliament, and since then it's gone from strength to strength. We now have 15 of the UK's major unions as affiliates. We have been the official international themes at two of the most important trade union festivals in our annual calendar, the Durham Miners Gala and the Tolparul Festival. And we held a vitally important solidarity action at last year's TUC conference, which we will see a little bit later. What we hope tonight will do is demonstrate the breadth and the depth of our campaign, the way in which it's gathering momentum and growing, as well as the international spread amongst the trade union movement. We've got a series of video messages of support that we're going to play at different intervals throughout the evening, as well as some really important live interventions from a number of people who I shall introduce when we arrive at those points. The agenda and all the approximate timings have been posted in the chat, so you can find the details there, along with some other materials that will be posted during the evening. Without further ado, I want to begin by playing one more opening video immediately about our Durham and Tolpuddle events that very much captures the importance of Ocalan and what it's all about in this campaign. And it's one at which one of our campaign's community advisors spoke so eloquently about why Abdullah Öcalan must be freed. Events that very much captures the importance of Ocalan and what it's all about in this campaign, and is one at which one of our campaign's community advisors spoke so eloquently about why Abdullah Öcalan must
the Kurdish
be
people
free.
Need your solidarity.
Events that
We
very
need
much
your solidarity
captures the
in
importance
deeds
of
as well as
Ocalan
words.
and what it's all about in this campaign, and is one at which one of our campaign's community advisors spoke so eloquently about why Abdullah Öcalan must
the Kurdish
be
people
free.
need your solidarity.
Events that very
Our
much
solidarity
captures the
with a rich
importance of
history as well as words.
and what it's all about in this campaign,
And this
and is one at which one of our campaign's community.
Villages bombed and shelled, Kurdish civilians killed, and yet at the same time it is the Kurds who are still in the front line of the fight against the so-called Islamic State. They fight for their people in the knowledge that if they fail, they will be destroyed utterly. One of our great national leaders is Abdullah Öcalan. Abdullah Öcalan has been in a Turkish prison since 1999. Öcalan is the Kurdish Nelson Mandela. He has called for a peaceful settlement of the Kurdish question. His political vision is what inspires so many of the fighters who are battling against the death cult ISIS. A vision of a democratic, pluralist nation with human rights for all versus a nightmare of repression, rape, and return to medievalism. Like Nelson Mandela, Öcalan wants to lead his people to a nation which is democratic, pluralistic, and where women and minorities have equal rights and status.
I'm really sorry if some of you were hearing a little bit of my voice over that. I hope we resolved the technical issue, but I'm sure you'll agree it's a great video which really captures how much Abdullah Öcalan and the Kurdish political movement very much share and overlap the values of the trade union movement, values of tolerance, democracy, peace, women's rights, and diversity. We wanted to show you just one more short video with the first contributions from a number of key supporters of the campaign and also the activists within it as well. So without further ado, we'll play the video and then we will move on to our first panel live interventions.
I am Ögmundur Jónasson, a lifelong trade unionist, both in my own country, Iceland, and internationally. I've also been active politically, a political activist, I would like to call it, as long as I can remember. But above all, in this context, I'm a signatory to the international initiative Freedom for Abdullah Öcalan, Peace in Kurdistan. And I've been representing that initiative in Kurdistan, in Turkey, in Strasbourg, wherever my voice can be heard, and now with you. It's telling that Abdullah Öcalan should have been abducted while he was on his way to South Africa at the invitation of Nelson Mandela, who, like Abdullah Öcalan, was also imprisoned in isolation on an island for a very long time by a racist regime which branded all opposition as terrorism. And these two individuals, Nelson Mandela and Abdullah Öcalan, were fighting for similar causes, for freedom, for democracy, for peace. And it is important to remember that eventually Nelson Mandela was won freedom by international pressure. Now it is Abdullah Öcalan who needs your support, our support together, to create that international pressure for his freedom. But if he needs our support and our help, we no less, the international community, need his help, because his ideas have proved to be constructive and helpful in creating peace in Kurdistan, in Turkey, in northern Syria, Rojava, in the Middle East in general, and in the world in general. Abdullah Öcalan has been kept in prison for 21 years. That is 21 years too many. The demand now is freedom for Abdullah Öcalan now.
My name is Yemi Hailemariam, and I wanted to record this solidarity for freedom of Öcalan, because I do believe that trade union solidarity is critical in these kinds of campaigns. I myself was very much involved in a campaign to get my partner, Andy Zige, released from an Ethiopian prison where he was detained illegally for 4 solid years because of his political activities. Trade unions like UCU, Unison, and Unite the Union were pivotal in getting him home. Lucky for us, we were successful, and in 2018, he was reunited with me and our 3 children here back in London. And I do hope, and I know actually, that solidarities from unions are very critical in these very long campaigns against repressive governments to get political prisoners freed. So I hope that we will get all involved and in this worthwhile cause of trying to get Abdullah Öcalan free from illegal detention. And let's hope that there will be solidarities from all the unions.
My name is Dalith Jewell, and I'm a member of the Senedd for Plaid Cymru. I am a supporter of the Freedom for Öcalan campaign, and I supported the hunger strikers last year, like Imam Sis, who lives in Newport, and really went to extreme lengths to show his support for the End the Isolation campaign. I urge you all to join me in supporting the Freedom for Öcalan campaign. The time has come. Freedom for Öcalan.
My name is Debbie Bookchin, and I want to add my voice to those calling for freedom for Öcalan. Right now, Turkey is engaged in a terror war against the entire Kurdish people, first in southeast Turkey, then in Rojava, in northeast Syria, and now in northern Iraq, where relentless bombings are endangering thousands of lives and where Turkey has already maimed and killed so many people, and especially targeted women. This carnage has to stop, and there's only one way forward: peace talks. And there's only one person who can lead those peace talks: Abdullah Öcalan. Like Nelson Mandela before him, Öcalan can lead the way to a lasting peace that will affect stability in the entire Middle East. It's time to move forward. It's time to release Abdullah Öcalan from prison. Free Öcalan. Do it now.
Colleagues, I'm absolutely sure you'll all agree that those contributions are excellent and help set the scene for tonight. So without any further ado, let's move right to the live interventions, beginning with Hisha Özay and Lloyd Russell Moyle. Hisha is a member of parliament in Turkey for the HDP party. That's the left progressive party that achieved a huge breakthrough in 2014 and has been a major actor and political force in Turkey ever since. Hisha is the co-spokesperson of international affairs. He previously taught at the University of Michigan on political sociology, social and political transformation, and the history and politics of the Middle East. He works as foreign relations coordinator and political advisor in the Diyarbakir Metropolitan Municipality, and he's vice president of the United Left Group in the Council of Europe Parliamentary Assembly. Hisha, it's a real pleasure and a privilege to have you with us tonight. The floor is yours, Hisha.
Mute. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, Simon. Thank you for this opportunity. My greetings to you and to all others who are part of this panel, as the audience, as the other speakers. I am at the Turkish Parliament still. We do have some sessions now here, and the government, as usual, is trying to pass very nasty laws and bills. So we are in resistance here as well. So, and thank you for your efforts. It was a wonderful collage of messages from across the world, those people who are interested in this case for the freedom of Öcalan. Ogmundur was there, Debbie was there, and many other colleagues. And honestly, they have said most of what I plan to say anyway. So let me do with the rest of my time. Let me see what I can do. So Mr. Abdullah Öcalan, of course, I mean, he's an individual, and mostly people talk about how his rights, legal rights as an individual, have been violated on a systematic basis in violation of both the Turkish laws as well as international conventions. The legal aspect of his situation is definitely important, but for the HDP, and I can speak on behalf of my party, Abdullah Öcalan is very important as a political leader, for which he has been in prison under solitary confinement over the last 21 years now. So we think he is under this tremendous policy of isolation because he does have many original and constructive ideas about the future of not only Turkey and Kurdistan, but the future of the Middle East as a whole. As we all know, we do have multiple conflicts across the Middle East. I mean, from Libya, Tunisia, Egypt to Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq. And when you look at the political landscape, there are almost no leaders who are offering something positive and constructive in terms of reorganizing our societies, our political systems, our economic systems, so that we can rearrange intercommunal relationships. So Mr. Öcalan has been putting forth various proposals, and these are all about reorganizing the society, more specifically to reorganize both. So the question of social difference on the one hand, as you know, we do have all kinds of differences, ethnic, cultural, political, sectarian, there are all kinds of differences. And unfortunately, in Turkey, Kurdistan, or the Middle East, we have not been able to find a way to organize these differences, right? In a peaceful, democratic way, egalitarian way. The second question is, of course, the question of inequality, right? Which is tied to the question of difference, social difference. And the kind of inequality in terms of access to wealth is an increasingly big problem in the Middle East. So what Öcalan is offering is a set of very constructive and democratic ideas, proposals for imagining and constructing new forms of sociality. And this is not just for Turkey and Kurdistan, but for the broader Middle East. So I think he should not be just perceived as a Kurdish leader squeezed into his Kurdish identity. We think as the HDP, his work and his political activities so far do have a much broader relevance. And then he should be very carefully listened to as a person whose ideas can be key to the resolution of many problems that plague the whole region, the Middle East and beyond. So he was the key interlocutor during the peace process, which was in effect between 2013 and 2015. And with the termination of the peace process in 2015, there is a rise in authoritarian politics in Turkey. Since then, the Turkish government has been using every means at its disposal, repressive means at its disposal to attack the Kurds, not only in Turkey, but also in Iraq and in Syria. We do have a particular state formation now in Turkey who perceives the Kurds, the very existence of Kurdish people and their gains in Syria and in Iraq, as well as in Turkey, as the ultimate national security threat. I mean, it is a racist, authoritarian logic. It is an ultra-nationalist logic. And like the isolation of Mr. Öcalan on the one hand, and the rise of authoritarian anti-democratic politics in Turkey, there is an inverse relationship between these two. I mean, when Öcalan could talk to people, the Turkish people, Kurdish people, the broader society, there was a much positive political climate, a much more democratic, dialogue-oriented piece of a political climate in Turkey. The moment they isolated Mr. Öcalan from the rest of the society, they started all kinds of authoritarian, anti-democratic politics. So the state has been instrumental, and from time to time, they have allowed family members and the lawyers to very briefly talk with Mr. Abdullah Öcalan. You may remember, before the local elections in Istanbul, they actually let the lawyers to have some meetings with Mr. Öcalan, a couple of meetings, but that was right before the local elections. And after the local elections, they started with their unlawful practice of keeping him under solitary confinement. I mean, that shows us something. In fact, if the government wants it, definitely Mr. Öcalan can have access to the broader public and express his ideas. The second point is the Turkish government also is aware of the power of Mr. Öcalan, despite the fact that he has been in prison over 21 years. So Mr. Öcalan is an individual whose political rights, whose legal rights have been violated. He is a political leader whose ideas are very influential across the region. But I would say the last point is, I think now also the Turkish government, who is actually imposing this politics of isolation, they too are aware of the fact that Mr. Öcalan is not just a victim of state oppression, state repression. He is also a very powerful political figure who we think is going to have a very powerful say in the future of Middle Eastern politics. And finally, I would like to thank you for this Freedom for Öcalan campaign. So far, the HDP2, we have been working on the termination of the politics of isolation on him. It is definitely time. We are actually late for pushing for the freedom of Öcalan, not simply for the termination of isolation on him. And thanks again for the opportunity.
Thanks so much for joining us and for your excellent intervention, which gives us an insight and reminds us again how the Turkish state did engage with Abdullah Öcalan in the search for peace. And that's exactly where they need to go again in the future. Without further ado, I'm going to hand the floor straight across to Lloyd Russell Moyle, who is a Member of Parliament for Brighton Kemptown since 2017. He served on the International Development Committee and the Committee of Arms Export Control. And Lloyd is also the chair of the All-Parliamentary Group for Northeast Syria. And I've had the pleasure of visiting the region with Lloyd on a couple of occasions. So he knows the situation. I think, Lloyd, you're going to explain as well why, from your point of view, freedom for Öcalan is so important and how we build pressure to bring that about. The floor is yours, Lloyd.
Thank you very much, Simon. And those two trips that we made there, first of all with Labour and trade unionists, and second time with Labour Conservatives and trade unionists, was an important set of trips to see how many of the ideas that Öcalan has espoused, and he spent many years in the region building up local community groups. This is years, decades before the current Syrian crisis, but building them up, embedding democracy into local communities, making sure that particularly women were at the heart of a lot of that local community democracy, but also the ideas of democratic confederalism. Not the idea that you just want to create a new state that has new problems, but actually that you think differently about how states work, particularly with minorities, the inclusion of all minorities. And actually what you see there, although it is being squeezed and crushed, what you see there is a real example of what Öcalan's ideas in practice would look like. And for me, that is really rather important. And it's rather important because it directly shows that those who just say that he is some terrorist or some kind of dangerous person that needs to be locked up don't understand actually what his ideas and his thoughts and his willingness in practice is to build sustainable peace. And that's what we saw being attempted to be built in Rojava. And I think that's why it was important that we took Conservatives, even though sometimes it's difficult to get on with Conservatives, and it's important that we took Labour peers and MPs alike. But it's not just that. I also had the pleasure of going to the HDP Congress this year on behalf of the Labour Party, and with the that was when I was the Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs briefly. That was, of course, we went as a delegation from social democratic parties across Europe, and not just the Social Democratic group, but also the Green and Radical group and the Nordic Left groupings, all of us together, because we understand that the work there to ensure that democracy is restored in Turkey, where you can have a pluralist participation of all elected representatives, is really important. But the other message that we gave there was that to solve part of this ongoing conflict, you have to solve the issue of the continued detention of the leader of the movement, or one of the leaders of the movement, because it doesn't just revolve around one man. There are many very strong and important people, but Öcalan has been locked up particularly, has been targeted particularly because of his thinking and his leadership. And there will be no justice if there is not justice for him. And that was a sentiment that we felt very strongly. That's a sentiment that I put very strongly to our ambassador who joined me on that trip, who is in Turkey. And of course, we have a role here in the UK to continue to push that, because Britain's role, coordination with Turkey, its role in selling arms to Turkey when they are doing things particularly on that northeastern Syrian Turkish border that are not according to the values that I would think that Britain should be standing up for, are important things that Britain has leverage on. And one of the key asks needs to be freedom for Öcalan. So that is where I come from this. And the problem that we have is the Conservative government are hostile. Even the Conservatives that we took along with us probably would admit that they are not positive on many of these cases. They are often, when you raise these issues, they kind of dismiss it as terrorism, or they dismiss it as, and we've seen that with some of the persecution of fighters who have returned back to Britain, who were actually helping fight against ISIS. And that is a more repressive state than you have even in Belgium, where the courts there have said that the fighting and the arguments in Turkey is not a case of terrorism. The Belgian courts have been very clear. It is a case of self-determination, and it is a case that it should be dealt with politically. And the Belgian courts have given very clear indications that Öcalan should be freed, and Britain should be joining other mature European nations to be able to say that. But I'm afraid we don't have a government that does that. But we also have a lot of Labour MPs that just don't know about this issue. And it's not anything, just bad about them, but it's just they don't know particularly about this issue. So we have a role to educate Conservatives and Labour members in both houses alike. And so I've been temporarily engaged on front bench duties for the last few months. That now comes to an end. So we will restore the APPGs for the Kurdish regions. We will have a chair for each one of the different regions. And we will hopefully relaunch our inquiry that we wanted to do, which was an inquiry in Parliament about political participation in Turkey and Kurdish, with the Kurdish minorities particularly, because we are particularly concerned about that. And a chapter of that was planned to focus on this question of freedom of the leader of much of the movement. So I hope that that's what we'll do and start to move back to when we get those APPGs re-established very soon. Now I have some more time on my hands. I think that's probably about it that you need from me, but I'm happy to answer questions, and people can read a number of our reports from our trips online. And I'm sure if they need to, they can request it from my office or your office. Simon and Ben and Claire can help provide them for many of that, because we wrote good reports after it.
Okay, thanks ever so much, Lloyd, and Hija too. Look, before we open the floor for the 15 minutes of input and exchange, we have another short video of messages of support. These are almost exclusively Kurdish colleagues. I think you'll see that they're extremely important and give a clear impression of just how important our solidarity is for the situation that they're currently in at the moment. So let's just watch this short collage of messages, and then we will open the floor for discussion.
زانن 21 سال رهبری گری کلتوری عبدالله öcalan دبن تجربه گرانده. همی به حقوقیت و ایرو امرایتی مشاندن بریار و قانونی و نقد تبلیغاتını imza kirin. همی دربی بریاری کنشتن. گلک جار راپورین کنسیه آوروپا و CPTG بارموازی هاتیه kirin. لیبلی دری امرالی دیجی گرتیه تجربه امرالیجی بردوام کرد. رئیس öcalan رول میسونیوی جبوی شارستنا پسکریکا کرد گلکی گرینگه ما وکدره سال 2012 حتی که 2015 دید رول میسونیو رئیس öcalan جبوی شارستنا پسکریکا کرد با آواتی دموکراتیک چخاص گرینگه همی دنیای دید. هر داوید هدیتنا پارسوانی رئیس öcalan وسط وجه. به ام لنقطه داری سکنینه دولت ترکیه بپازه ناف هفته کده افسکریت کاری چاره سکنی. ام جیوه کده پدیجه. رولو میسونه برای öcalan گلکی گرینگه چاره سکنه افسکریت کاری چاره سکنین. جبرویجی دما راکدا تجربه کنه نا دما آزادیه برای öcalan.
Abdullah Öcalan is the only modern Kurdish leader who has been able to lay down a peaceful exit plan out of the bloody wars imposed by the nation-states in the Middle East. Öcalan proposes a democratic confederal coexistence of peoples, of which Kurds would comprise a component with equal rights and liberties. Peace and freedom reigns in the lands wherever his proposals are materialized, as we see in Rojava, and war ravages the lands wherever his proposals are refuted, as we see in Turkey. Öcalan's freedom will signify the beginning of the materialization of the peaceful coexistence of peoples in the Middle East. Freedom for Öcalan means giving peace a chance.
سرنامه تباهی جن روجاوای کردستانی و پروژلات سوری تباهی پیکاتیان تایبت وکی کنگرستار حسکرنا خواهش ورا دشینن و تایبت دو شخص شهید آنا کامبل هلین قرار جوخدا تباهی آزادی خواز و آشتی خواز این بود بریتانیا دا سلاوت کن هم بیست کن شخوا حمله يكون بيدرابن جبوي آزادية بريز عبدالله أوجلان جهوي جمع جلك جدايا جلك رامبوهايا جبركو وكي كونغرستار وكي بروجيا ديمقراطيك اكولوجيك يا ونها دبا بروجلات السوري ويا وكي هيفي اشتباهية جهاني را سر رامان وفكري بريز عبدالله أوجلان شخوا روشا كون هم تيدا جيانت كان با بروجلات السوري ونجنز ود شوبينن ام دا امبارگو که گلک گران دا آلی آبوری دا درواز بن پشتی بگانینا قانونا سیزاره وکی دیجی دا گرکریا دولتا ترکیا کو العفرین دا 2018 دا دست فکریا لسرکانی گریسپی دا 2019 دا بو حتی روژا ایرو من بيقرين دولة تركيا لتباهية جهن داغر كري دا ايدي جهاني رجلك زلال واشكريا تهديد دولة تركيا سر بروجيا ديمقراطيك ياكو بشكتيا جن تكرن البروجلات السوري جلكي اوجي زلال ويا طيبت هدف قرتنا كاسين بوكي بيشنگ دنابا رخصتنا جن داتينا ناس كرن هدفتنا قرتن لکوبانی د 23 ماه ششان دا ناسین حوالی خوین پیشنگ موندا کرن دنا وادجی ریبرین کنگرس سردمون نها تهدید دولت ترک حتی روجا ایرو هر هنا هر زیده دبن لآلیه عین عیسا کنگونه که یعنی رخصتونگونه که چطین دولت ترک هنا جبه ایریشه که محتمل یانو هیا جبويشي وكي خلقين ببروجلات السوري يكو قريبون برخدانية كجلك منظن بآليكاريا هبالو رخصتنين خواين لتبايا جهاني وينجي دنابدا جهكي جلك مزن ولا يستن بشجري جبوي شورشا ببروجلات السوري يكو بناوي شورشا جن جارك دي بشجري جلك هي خورتر ببي جنين كون هادنا بود حاضر هم بهتر وكي كونغرستر ام جركا كارو خبات بحفرة بكن ام اتفاقا آبا بكن ام تجربة خب حفرة بار بكرن جبوكو ام كاربن راست ام جهانكا كو عدالت وكهبي وجنت دا بيشنگ بيم آبا بكن
I'm making this statement on behalf of a comrade and fellow transport worker who is unable to make this statement personally, as it would put both her safety and the safety of her family in Turkey at risk. Like many in the Kurdish community who have fled oppression in Turkey and other places, she still has family back home, a family who may suffer reprisals from the Turkish state if she was to speak out. She comes from a region called Dersim. Dersim is home to Kurds and many other minorities who identify as Dersimi. It's also the location of a dark chapter in Turkish history. To assert its dominance in an attempt to erase hundreds of years of history and culture, the Turkish army massacred as many as 50,000 in the late 1930s. An echo of the Armenian genocide its Ottoman forebears carried out at the beginning of the 20th century. Turkey is still attacking Kurds. For most of the last 100 years, it has criminalised their language, culture and traditions in an attempt to force assimilation. It has jailed the leader of the Kurdish movement, Abdullah Öcalan, and kept him in conditions which can only be described as inhumane for 21 long years. It has detained hundreds of democratically elected Kurdish politicians and now is attacking Kurds outside its borders with military force. Turkey's appetite for belligerence against the Kurds grows every day as the international community remains silent. That's why the solidarity of the trade union movement is so important. If our political institutions fail to do the right thing, to stand in solidarity with the Kurds in the name of peace and democracy, then the organised labour movement must take a stand, just as it has done many times before. Please support the trade union Freedom for Öcalan campaign. The trade union movement was proud to stand alongside Mandela. Please now take a stand for Abdullah Öcalan and the Kurdish people. Öcalan must be free. Time has come.
Okay, colleagues, once again, I think a really moving video, and it should bring home to you just how important our solidarity is for people on the ground living some of the realities and difficulties. And it should encourage us to go out and try and build and strengthen this campaign further. Please also just bear in mind that some of those videos have been made under very, very difficult circumstances, and we really appreciate the effort and trouble they've gone to send them through to us. I'm going to open the floor. We've had a number of indications of people who want to put their questions directly. I'm going to call Tom Murphy first, and your mic should be opened in a moment, Tom, and then having Paul and Turkan. Tom, the floor's yours.
Thanks, Simon. Tom Murphy from United Union. And I just want to make a brief comment. I'm really happy that this rally is taking place, especially with what we are seeing with the increased attacks by Turkey on its own citizens and its invasion into Rojava. As you know, I've followed and participated in this campaign for a few years now, and I'm pleased to see it growing from strength to strength. And I've taken part in solidarity delegations to Turkey and have seen firsthand the difficulties that trade unionists, progressives, and anyone that speaks out for equality or freedom has out there. And I've really seen through this campaign the importance that a free Abdullah Öcalan would play for the peace for the people of that region. That this is a trade union campaign is hugely important, as we are the largest civil society organisation in the world, and we have a great track record in campaigning for the release of political prisoners. So I just want to give my full support to this rally and urge any union members to affiliate to the campaign. So my question is to Hizya. So Hizya, given the current unstable and chaotic situation and that Turkey looks to be on the brink of collapse, to what extent does this situation pressure Erdogan to release Abdullah Öcalan to help stabilise the situation, or will it in fact be the opposite and lead to further repression?
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Tom. Let me take a couple more questions before we bring Hizya and Lloyd back in. Having, I can't see you on my screen, Having, but your mic should be open. No.
Okay, hello.
Oh, Having, there you are. Okay.
Good evening, Simon.
Good evening.
I want to also say that we are, of course, in total solidarity and in working in tandem with you in the campaign. And I must say today was especially a grand rally put by your team and you. So congratulations on this once again. Now, of course, there's an amazing resistance and a struggle to build an alternative way of life, both by Abdullah Öcalan on the Imralı Island prison, as well as tens of thousands of local leaders who are in Turkish prisons at the moment. And of course, by the Kurdish people and their friends and other peoples in the region, especially seeing the horrendous fascistic attacks by the Turkish state. Now, of course, the slogan of our campaign is perfect. The time has come, because it is quite philosophical as well as reflects the moment. So I would like to second Hishyar, and I would like him to tell us a little bit more about how much this intersection of what is happening at a world scale, which is the collapse of the civilization as we know it, you know, the patriarchal civilization, and what Öcalan and the Kurdish people are doing at the moment on the ground, how this is intersecting, how this resistance is actually affecting everybody, and how important Öcalan's freedom is at the moment as such.
Okay, thanks, Havin. I've got Paul Peacock down as well. Paul, I think they're just opening your mic. There you go.
Hello there, everyone. My name is Paul Peacock. I'm a Unite representative in the northeast of England. Now, currently, Operation Claw Eagle has been launched against the Kurds in the Makhurma refugee camp. This is genocidal aggression. Acts like this are getting buried by the right-wing press. How do we, I think it goes back to Lloyd's point, how do we sort of like educate people, get people on side, and how do we like make this like an international cause when we don't really have a voice as yet, but we actually need one to take this cause forward?
Okay, thanks, Paul. Do you want to come back first, and then perhaps Lloyd, you've got some comments on the questions and points put as well? Hizia? That is
unmute. Thank you so much for the questions and contributions. Very briefly, I know we do have time pressure here. The chances to release Öcalan under the current circumstances in Turkey, I mean, Turkey is pretty much squeezed, really. It is cornered in regional politics, economically, politically. We do have all kinds of problems in Turkey. And we think that actually Mr. Öcalan, a dialogue with him, is the way out, not only with respect to the Kurdish question. Turkey does have problems in Syria, in Iraq, in Lebanon, Libya now. And this almost chronic economic and political instability that has been kind of plaguing the country over the last 5 years. I mean, given the situation, Mr. Öcalan is the way out. But the other problem is, even if Erdogan wants to do it, then he has his ultranationalist allies who are terribly against any kind of positive attitude on the Kurdish issue. So we think with this government, with Erdogan and MHP government, it is next to impossible to have any kind of way forward. So we need to overcome this government first. But I think more and more people are coming to the realization that if Mr. Öcalan is released, or at least in the first stage, if he is able to dialogue with both the government and the rest of the society, there will be positive developments. It all depends on actually if people work on this issue, make this an international issue, and put enough pressure on the government. With respect to Havin's question, thank you very much. I mean, we should know that Mr. Öcalan, over the last 20 years, he has been writing on mainly the crisis of the nation state and capitalism as it has been materialized in the Middle East, right? So when you look at the whole Middle Eastern geography, it is not simply because some crazy Shia, Sunni people or Kurds, we just keep killing each other. It's not about that. It is about the fact that over the last 100 years, certain political formations that we call the nation state have been established in this geography, and these formations have not been able to respond to two fundamental challenges: how to organize social and political difference, and how to organize egalitarian societies. Still, we do have these problems, and now in very chronic forms and with tremendous violence in the region. So in that sense, the kind of ideas, criticism of Mr. Ocalan with respect to the question of the nation state, as well as organization of like society, economy, and political systems in the Middle East. And definitely, so Mr. Ocalan emerged not just as a, I would say, like individual, a political leader. He is a very, very risk-taking, creative thinker, and his body of thought does have a lot of potential for people to engage. Like the Middle East is like, we should refrain from making Orientalist assumptions, but we do have all kinds of problems in this region: ethnic problems, religious, sectarian problems, problems with respect to distribution of wealth here, like highly authoritarian, hierarchical political systems, immense patriarchal relationships everywhere, militarization of existing conflicts, all these problems. So, I mean, it is time, definitely. We are late, actually. It has been 20 years. And this, please also take this as a self-critique of my party, the HDP, as a person, as a politician, as a representative of the HDP. We are coming to this point only after 20 years. I think we are late, but if we can work harder, we may be able to catch up with the time. Thank you so much. I think, is there any other question that I left unanswered?
I think you got them all, Kezia. Thank you very much. Lloyd, did you want to come in at all on any of them?
Just two things. First of all, I wanted to say at the HDP conference, one of the things that I was very pleased to see was representatives of other political parties in Turkey there starting to try and work together and coordinate together, because that is, of course, one of the keys to how we are able to move forward. A divided opposition is not a good opposition, and there are difficult challenges, because our other sister party in the Labour Party, the CHP, does not have a great record. Let's be very clear, our other sister party doesn't have a great record on this, and that's of course why there's been difficulty to cooperate, but that is starting to hopefully to be turned around. And so we have a role, I guess, in the UK Labour Party and through PES to also support that cooperation, because CHP and the HDP are both members of our international, and that's something that I've been talking with our colleagues in the Brussels office and in the other offices, the SI office, to make sure that we coordinate that cooperation and support that. One of the, I can see in the text, in the chat, one of the comments is about, will the front bench make statements about this? I mean, the front bench has made statements about its concern on the detention. And I ran a debate in Westminster Hall last year, because we had the hunger strikers in Britain around access for lawyers and family for a number of political prisoners, but particularly for Ocalan. So those, we gave good responses on that, but not as good as I would like. And part of that is an education role that we need to do with members of parliament. And I think trade unions, who have very good links often with Labour members of parliament, play a really important role in that as well. The delegations, but also trade unions contacting and talking to members of parliament about why this is important, and why what we see here is a particular model of working that is, if the ideas are furthered, that is around socialism, and that we need to support. And I hope that Lisa Nandy and her team are sympathetic to those views, but they need to be brought on that journey, as all MPs do.
Okay, thanks very much, Lloyd. I've got 3 more questions, and I know Kezia is under extreme time pressure, so please, 1 minute only. I've got Sarah Glynn, so we'll open your mic. Sarah, followed by Turkan, and then Osman. 1 minute only, please.
Hi, so Sarah Glynn from Scottish Solidarity with Kurdistan. I'm also a member of Unison. And what I wanted to ask, we've obviously made a lot of comparisons with Mandela and anti-apartheid, and an important role in that was boycott, divestment and sanctions campaign. So I wanted to ask the speakers and the campaign as well, what support they give to boycotting Turkey as a way of putting pressure, both for the freedom for Ocalan and for the Kurdish movement and freedom more generally. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. Osman, have we managed to find the mic? There you go, your mic's open, Osman.
Okay, great, thank you. This is great, Simon, to see you again, and thanks for organizers. It's very appreciated from my side. I don't want to too much take of your time, and especially that this rally is still ongoing while the coronavirus is in place. I wanted to ask a question about what will be the impact of this rally and the future campaign, and how effective that would be, and what we can foresee in the future. Also, will there be a petition, and if so, where do you intend to submit that petition to? Will the rally and some other campaigns and activities have any legal implications, whereby providing any remedy to be used in order to find a way of creating impact for the campaign, or any other information you may be useful that I can now, and what we can do as well, I mean, to contribute towards that campaigning and what in the future. Thank you for the time and the opportunity.
Thanks very much, Osman. Let me just put, I gather Turkan's not has left the call. Let me just give Hisia and Lloyd the chance to respond on those couple of points that was brought, and then we'll move on to the next section. Lloyd, do you want to go first this time, and then Hisia to close it?
I think that I'm not sure there's much more for me particularly to say. I mean, I agree that we need to work together on boycott and divestment, particularly. My feeling is targeted. I do not want this to be seen as us against the people of Turkey. And I think that's very important. And so I think targeted sanctions, we now have the Magnitsky laws that allow more targeted sanctions to individuals. I actually think from a government point of view, that's where we should go. And then boycotts on certain things that we might know have links particularly to the Turkish military are important. But these are difficult issues. Turkish military pension fund was one of the people offering to bail out some of our steelworks. And so there are difficult trade union relation discussions that we have to have as well. So I'm not necessarily for all the baby out with the bathwater, but I do think that there is some point of choosing certain lines, choosing certain things, and choosing certain people that you might want to focus a campaign around. And I think that would be very fair, because Turkey more broadly, not just the treatment of Kurds, more broadly is going in a very worrying direction.
Okay, thanks, Lloyd. Hisia, let me open you up.
Okay, thank you. You hear me?
Yeah, you're good,
Simon. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I agree with Lloyd over the issue of sanctions, boycotts. I mean, if you look at the situation in South Africa, say like 30 years ago, you would see that, I mean, the apartheid regime came to a point of dialogue with Mandela and his friends only after systematic boycotting of the country, right? I mean, when they asked the clerk about why they made peace with the ANC and Mandela, he said there was no other choice, because we didn't even have one single airport on the planet to land our planes who were carrying wines, right? Wine. And so I think definitely now we are at the stage of kind of building awareness about the situation, educating politicians, the civil society organizations, and other people. But we need to make sure to find a way to bring in some governments who are in a position to, for example, issue sanctions. And I agree with that. I mean, not the people of Turkey should be penalized, but there are so many other ways to go with those to put enough pressure on the government or those who are responsible for the atrocities committed against the Kurds in Turkey, Syria, or Iraq. So, I mean, it is up to the people who are organizing this whole campaign, and we are a contributor to that. So there can be creative ways of thinking about the question of boycott and other things. Academic boycott can be one of them, right? The trade unions can think of their own way of boycotting things, human rights organizations. So honestly, I wish the Turkish government, would understand from kind of civilized dialogue, but oftentimes, I mean, when there is some kind of concerted, powerful international pressure, so they back down. That's unfortunately how things work on this part of the planet. Yeah.
I'll mute myself. Hisia and Lloyd, look, let me on behalf of everybody just say a real big thanks to both of you for excellent and insightful contributions. And Hisia, we do appreciate difficulties, so it's a real privilege to have you live with us at this event, and I do appreciate as well you're under a lot of time pressure, so we hope you can stay, but we understand 100% if you need to deal with any more pressing matters. Just on the question of the campaign, Osman, we're obviously hoping that this will give it a boost, and we're trying to build it and it will expose it more. We're going to leave a recording of it online for other people to watch all the messages. So we'll do what we possibly can. And just to say on the issue of boycott and sanctions and so on, Lloyd very articulately flagged up some of the problems, no question about that, and the complications. But let us not forget, Turkey is a member of NATO, and it is illegally occupying parts of Syria, parts of Iraq. It's involved in Libya. It is on a massively aggressive trajectory. It has got hundreds of thousands of its own people in prison, and it has used its own military against its own population. So we do need to think very carefully about how we can maximize the pressure and do something about the aggression that is coming out of the Turkish state at the moment. So look, thanks very, very much for that session. We're going to move on to a couple of more live interventions, but we just want to break it up and intersperse it with a couple of more very important political messages from another Labour MP, somebody who was involved heavily in the Colombian peace processes and is now a congressperson, as well as a couple of other general secretaries of our own movement, and an academic to join us as well, who's very active. So without further ado, we'll play the next video.
Hi, I'm Kate Osborne, Labour MP for Jarrow, and I'm really pleased to be supporting the Freedom for Ocalan campaign and to join my brothers and sisters in the trade union movement in calling for the end to the imprisonment of Abdullah Öcalan. I became aware of the campaign as a trade union rep in Unite and was struck by how Öcalan's writings of equality, women's liberation and grassroots democracy echoed those of the global trade union movement. I'm proud that Unite was one of the founder unions of the campaign, and I truly believe that the trade union movement across the world is the biggest social movement in the world, and we can make a real difference to political prisoners. Look what we did for the Miami 5, for countless Colombian prisoners, and for Nelson Mandela. I was extremely happy to speak on behalf of my union on various platforms such as the TUC and on union fringes, but I was especially proud to raise it at the Labour Party conference a few years ago. I called for Ocalan's freedom and in support of the Kurdish people's struggle, and I'm happy now as an MP to continue to stand up and speak out, supporting the Freedom for Ocalan campaign and in solidarity with the Kurdish people. And I assure you that I will do all I can to get my fellow MPs to also support the campaign. Please help to build the international pressure for an end to Ocalan's imprisonment and affiliate to the Trade Union for Freedom Ocalan campaign. The time has come.
Hi, Chris Stevens MP here for Glasgow South West. Sorry I can't join you in the rally tonight as I'll be travelling back to Glasgow, but I just wanted to say a few words in joining our fantastic colleagues in the trade union movement with a simple message, and that is that we need freedom for Ocalan. I support the campaign for the freedom of Ocalan, who has been imprisoned for far too long. Millions of Kurds and friends of the Kurdish people have asked and demanded his freedom. We ask for the return to peace talks between the Kurdish and Turkish people. Ocalan is right to say that democratic peace can only be achieved through the process of peace. As an SNP MP, I call on the Turkish authorities and the Turkish state for immediate action. Freedom for Ocalan.
Soy Victoria Sandino Simán Herrera, exguerrillera de las FARC-EP, negociadora del Acuerdo de Paz y ahora soy congresista por el partido FARC que nace resultado del Acuerdo de Paz entre la guerrilla y el Estado colombiano firmado en el 2016. Después de 50 años de lucha armada de manera ininterrumpida en nuestro país. Quiero unirme a la campaña sindical internacional por la libertad de Abdullah Ocalan, quien lleva más de 21 años en prisión, encarcelado injustamente por parte del Estado turco. Abdullah es precisamente presidente del partido del Kurdistán y desde la prisión ha escrito varias obras desarrollando temas diversos como el confederalismo democrático, que invito a estudiar, el feminismo kurdo y la lucha contra el fascismo. De pronto en Colombia no estamos muy enterados de lo que pasa con la lucha de los kurdos o la lucha kurda, pero invito que sea esta una gran oportunidad para que conozcamos esa otra realidad y también expresemos nuestra solidaridad. Llamo a que movimientos sociales, partidos políticos, sindicales en América Latina a que se sumen a este apoyo internacional por su liberación. Nosotros y nosotras también sabemos qué es vivir bajo la represión de un régimen. Aún después de haber firmado un acuerdo de paz, tenemos prisioneros políticos, incluso extraditados en los Estados Unidos, como es el caso de nuestro querido camarada inolvidable Simón Trinidad. Es por eso que sabemos que lo importante que es el apoyo internacional para visibilizar todas estas reivindicaciones y seguir luchando por la libertad. Libertad para Abdullah Ocalan.
Hello, my name is Doug Nichols. I'm General Secretary of the General Federation of Trade Unions, which has a strong internationalist tradition going right back 120 years. One of our priority campaigns is the Freedom for Öcalan campaign. We've supported this since its inception, and we've held festivals to celebrate the work of Kurdish communities and their culture in this country and overseas, and we've sent delegates to witness firsthand the appalling situation that the Kurdish community and Democrats and trade unionists and public sector workers face in what must be the world's most brutal regime at the moment, Turkey. 30 years ago, we celebrated the release of Nelson Mandela from prison. His release was very much an international, global struggle, and it was particularly well supported by the British trade union movement. We believe now that our priority is the Freedom for Öcalan campaign, and we would urge all trade unionists and all democratic, peace-loving people to prioritise this campaign. He's imprisoned because he stands for peace, equality for women, democracy and a non-sectarian future for not just the Kurdish regions but for the whole of the Middle East. Please support the campaign.
Barry Flanagan. I'm General Secretary of the Educational Institute of Scotland, which is the main education union here in Scotland for teachers and lecturers. I'm pleased to make this short solidarity video in support of the campaign to free Abdullah Öcalan. These are turbulent times across the globe. You see many people having to make a stand in relation to basic democratic rights against dictators of all shapes and sizes. So it is useful to take a moment to reflect upon the sacrifice that others have made in being prepared to challenge oppression wherever it's occurred. In that respect, the 21 years in jail that Abdullah Öcalan has suffered is a real testament to the strength of his conviction, and one that we should respect greatly. I come from Glasgow, which is a city which in the past was the first in the world to grant the freedom of the city to Nelson Mandela when he was incarcerated in the apartheid jails. We then had the pleasure of welcoming him when he was released, and I hope that one day soon we'll be able to also welcome a released Abdullah Öcalan. So I think it's appropriate. We have an active campaign here amongst the Kurdish community and supported by the trade union movement to have him released, and this particular solidarity video is sent with genuine solidarity greetings, and hopefully before too long we will be able to celebrate his freedom. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Karianne Westren and I am the chair of the EU-Turkey Civic Commission and a professor at the University of Bergen, Norway. In one way or another, we all have been affected by the recent pandemic, COVID-19, that has kept us in isolation in our homes during lockdown. In this situation, my thought goes to those suffering from extreme conditions, like the tens of thousands of political prisoners, and among them the leader of the Kurdish freedom movement, Abdullah Öcalan, who has been held in solitary confinement in horrible conditions for 21 years. Öcalan's isolation is due not only to the danger of the spread of the coronavirus, but also to the authorities' fear that his ideas and strong influence will spread and represent a threat to Turkey. On the cover of COVID-19, everything can happen to him, such as sudden illness and death. Therefore, it is important to have constant attention directed at Öcalan's situation, and the trade union's campaign contributes precisely to that. The political movement that Öcalan has deeply influenced has managed to spark off a cultural and social transformation of the role of women and every layer in Kurdish society. Indeed, like Mandela, Öcalan has become a teacher to his people, and the movement is a school for the Kurds. Freedom for Öcalan, so that he can resume his tireless efforts for peace and democracy. As Mandela said, only free men can negotiate. Prisoners cannot enter into contracts. Öcalan's ambition is peaceful negotiations with Turkey. This clearly shows that he is a world leader, and even more, he is a teacher of humanity.
Okay, I think once again some excellent and really important messages there. Carrie Ann, I missed you on the last round. You had your hand up. If it's okay, what I'd suggest is I just bring in Christine and Elif as planned, and then call you straight after they've made their contributions. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the floor to Christine Blower, who's the former General Secretary of the NEU, which is the Teachers Union, and is still president at the moment of the European section of Education International that brings together all the teachers' unions across Europe. She's also in the upper house of Parliament in the UK, has been a massive and tireless campaigner on international issues. And I think Christine's going to say a few words about the importance of building the international aspects of this campaign. Christine, the floor is yours.
Simon, thank you so very much. And I'm absolutely delighted to be part of this really big and really important rally. And I should just say that I've personally been involved in the Kurdish question since about 1996, 97, even before Öcalan was imprisoned, when the NUT first started to develop policy on that area. And I have visited the region on many occasions, always a meeting with Eğitim Sen, our member organization and sister union in Turkey, and working very closely with the Kurds. And of course, making the case for the fact that Kurdish children should have education in Kurdish, and that the Kurdish language should be decriminalized in the way it's been criminalized by the Turks. So in this debate, in this meeting, we're talking a lot about the Freedom for Öcalan campaign, and I just want to say that I was delighted to have been part of the debate at the TUC that originally launched this campaign. And it's really important for people, and we'll hear from the TUC later, but it's really important for people to know that the TUC is fully behind this campaign. This is a TUC campaign. And international solidarity is central to what we do as trade unionists. And therefore, one of the jobs that we have is to make sure that every one of our members is as well versed in international matters as they possibly can be. Too many of our comrades, of our brothers and sisters in too many countries have been held as political prisoners. In Colombia, we just heard from Victoria Sandino. I think in particular of Miguel Beltran, of Uber Ballesteros, of Liliano Abando, but there have been so many. In the USA, as Kate mentioned, the Miami Five, who were held in Florida for so long and so unjustly. And of course, in Brazil, President Lula held in prison on trumped up charges. And of course, as many have said, Nelson Mandela held mostly on Robben Island for 27 years. What unites these people is they were all engaged in the struggle for justice, for freedom, for peace and democracy. And ultimately, all of those people have been freed, some with massive campaigns, some with smaller campaigns, but they have been freed. But Abdullah Öcalan, of whom we have already heard so much this evening, has now been in prison for 21 years. And we absolutely have to up the ante on making sure that we are campaigning for his freedom. We've been doing lots over the years, but we have not yet been successful. So we have to redouble our efforts, as we always do when we see injustice anywhere. We have to work on the parliamentary front, we have to work in our trade unions, and when the time comes again, we have to make sure that we're on the streets taking the message out. In the struggle for the freedom and justice for Nelson Mandela, many of us believed that we might never see him freed, but we did. So after 21 years, we have to continue the campaign for freedom for Abdullah Öcalan. No one is free until we are all free. Abdullah Öcalan, freedom now, the time has come. Thank you.
Thanks ever so much, Christine. Really appreciated. I'll hand straight across to Elif Sarikan, who I mentioned before is a member of the Kurdish community in the UK and has been involved in many of the activities and will make an intervention now. Elif, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Matt and Ben and everyone else that's been involved in putting this online rally together, but also have been working tirelessly since 2016 to establish the Freedom for Öcalan campaign as an actual trade union campaign as well. I just want to say I hope everyone is as safe and as well as we can be, particularly at this time. And again, thank you for a lot of the comrades who have joined this call. I see many of our trade union friends that we've met over the years, and many people from the Kurdish community across the country, and also international participants. I saw Debbie, who is also on the call live as well, so thank you. And before I go into just literally a couple of points, I wanted to say two things before the actual points. One is that on Sunday, the 19th of July, it's the 8th anniversary of the Rojava Revolution. So So the revolution that that Abdullah Öcalan is the architect of in terms of ideas is celebrating 8 years of its official establishment on Sunday, but also crucially, even more crucially, it's even more time to make sure we increase our efforts to defend this revolution as well, because this revolution isn't just a revolution for Kurdish people. Many people who have spoken on this call have articulated that very well and alluded to it as well. So with that in mind, I also want to very briefly remember Dean Evans, who would have lost his life 4 years ago on the 21st of July. He went to Syria from Reading. He was a farmer before he went, and he was killed in Manbij within the ranks of the YPG while fighting for the territorial liberation of Syria in general. Now, I think when we talk about, you know, the trade union movement and so on, it's really important to understand the history of the trade union movement. Of course, we don't have time to go into it today, but the trade union labor movement has been very crucial in establishing a culture of internationalism across society in where we live across the British Isles. And therefore, it's really important when we're seeing so many changes and so many very scary policies being developed by governments across the world. It's very important that we keep that, because solidarity, and particularly international solidarity, as we know for many years, is literally what keeps us human, and that's the bare minimum. And what we build on that is what can only be meaningful. And so the link between the Kurdish community and the trade union movement is crucial, particularly for that reason, but also because it's important for there to be a harmonious relationship between diaspora communities, who are of course diasporas for a reason, and a labor movement that labor and trade union movement that has set many crucial precedents, not just for the workers and the laborers of this country, but also for international struggles. And just very briefly, I think it's important, the relationship between the Kurdish community and therefore like democratic aspects of diasporas and the trade union movement, because we are at a juncture in society, you know, having asked the question about civilization. Of course, again, we don't have much time to go into it, but I think it's really important people engage with that even further in terms of, you know, it's very brief history, but like, of course, the inequalities go further than that. But when Margaret Thatcher in the 80s said, Tina, there is no alternative, I think we're seeing right now through what the Kurdish movement has been doing, that there are alternatives, and that there are alternatives that improve people's lives. So I think that links into why the freedom of Abdullah Öcalan is so important for Kurdish women and the Kurdish women's movement, is because of that, of those ideas. And you know, Hisha spoke about the creativity, which I think is really crucial. You know, it's important because Abdullah Öcalan is not just an individual, he is a thinker, he is a very importantly creative thinker, and also he was able to set precedents that Kurdish women were able to take and also run with. This is why we call Abdullah Öcalan in Kurdish Reben, which means to show the way. And showing the way means that many local leaders or many local people who showed the way can also build on that precedent. So just finally, I just wanted to say that, you know, our struggle is not the only struggle around the world right now. There are many very crucial struggles across the world, actually also where we live as well, you know, the position of workers, of migrants, of women, and so on, which is why we need to further develop a politics, but also a culture and actually a feeling, an emotion of international solidarity that can also make way for a understanding of common struggle, which means all of our struggles are tied with each other. So therefore, our freedom, our freedom is everyone's freedom, and everyone's freedom is our freedom, and that they are inherently and necessarily tied with each other. I just wanted to make a very brief point on the boycott Turkey thing. I just wanted to join Hishad and Simon, you, and also and also others who mentioned that it must be a targeted boycott, but also just add that boycotting Turkey and therefore the Turkish state, aspects of the Turkish state in a targeted way, is not just solidarity with the Kurds. And that's really crucial to understand. It's solidarity with democratic aspects, it's solidarity with alternatives, with freedom, and more crucially, which is something we don't talk about as often as we should, peace. It's solidarity with peace, which is why we need to boycott in a very clever, creative, and targeted way. We need to boycott the Turkish state. Thank you very much, and thanks so much for organizing this.
Thanks so much, Ellie, for another brilliant contribution. As always, I missed something in the chat. Mark had said, please use the hashtag @FreedomForOcalan. Please take a look at that if you can. And also, I must call Carrie Ann, who I missed out on the previous round of questions. I don't know if we can answer Carrie Ann's, open Carrie Ann's mic.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Go on, Carrie.
Thank you very much, Simon, and your team for organizing this amazing and timely rally. I have two brief questions. Maybe Hishai, I don't know, Hish is still there with us. I don't know. But is there any sign of change in Turkish authorities' rhetoric about Öcalan and his situation? And the second question, is the trade union campaign, mentioned at all by Turkish authorities or in Turkish mainstream media? I mean, this is a really crucial and very big, a huge campaign. So I'm sure they are aware of it, but is it mentioned? Is it discussed in media, for example?
Okay, thank you very much, Carrie Ann. Let me unmute Hisha or yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Karen, for the question. Unfortunately, we don't see any sign of change, I should say. The government is very much militaristic and ultra-nationalistic, although this government is also very pragmatic. We have seen this before local elections in Istanbul, when even Devlet Bahçeli, who is the leader of the racist ultra-nationalist party, said, for example, that Öcalan's lawyers have the right to talk to him, right? And so, despite the fact that we do have a very racist, ultra-nationalist, militaristic kind of, and decisively anti-Kurdish coalition in Turkey, but still, I mean, all of them, they are somehow aware of the power of Mr. Abdullah Öcalan, his power in changing things in Turkey, in Syria, Rojava, or in Iraq. So I think it is, I don't want to be very pessimistic, because I mean, even if we overcome this government is gone, the next government is not going to be very democratic minded with respect to the Kurdish question. So one way or another, we have to deal with highly Turkish nationalist people who will be in the next government too. So we just need to keep working on it. I think what the government will do, I mean, of course, it's a very important question, but I think that at least partly depends on the struggles here at home and in diaspora. The second question, very important, I think the campaign should try to find ways to gain some visibility in Turkey, in the media. I don't think that you will be able to find some place in the mainstream Turkish media. I am a member of parliament since 2015, deputy chair of a party, quite active in foreign affairs, but I did not have a chance to be visible even in one mainstream TV channel over the last 5 years. But there are ways to do this, and as the HDP, we would want to help it. But of course, we don't want to turn this campaign into an HDP thing, definitely. But I think that component should be carefully thought about, because at the end of the day, if you are not visible, you do not exist, honestly, in terms of the kind of politically impacting the situation. I mean, at least you can have a couple of interviews, something with the, say, the kind of oppositional media. I mean, some of them still, they have the courage to do this. Social media can be used more effectively. At least, I mean, you can actually do something also in Turkish. We say Turkish and Kurdish. Like the language of a campaign doesn't need to be necessarily English. Of course, I mean, we do that. But, you know, we all need to think about this question that she asked. It's a very, very important question. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Hisha. Look, colleagues, I'm aware we're already slightly running over. We've got 3 short things to do before we draw the events to a close. We have received, unfortunately, they've got some real difficulties, as I'm sure you're aware, in South Africa, but COSATU, the South African Trade Union Confederation, which was born in struggle and knows everything about how to fight repression, sent us a full statement to be read out at the meeting. I won't read all of it, but we will post it afterwards. And I will read, though, just 3 short paragraphs, which I think are vitally important and say absolutely everything. The 4th paragraph begins, speaking at a Kurdish festival in Germany, Mandela said, "We know what it means to be oppressed in your own country. We know the pain of a mother whose child has disappeared. We know what it means to have your nationality and culture insulted." Mandela's words encapsulate historical similarities between South Africa under apartheid regime and Kurdish under Turkish rule and the fight for equality, social justice and peace. These ideals define COSATU's internationalism and therefore place a moral obligation to support the release of Öcalan and the overall struggle of the Kurdish people. COSATU recognizes that the demise of the apartheid regime came about as a result of international solidarity. The entire world stood up for Mandela's freedom through all forms of solidarity, which eventually led to his release. It is in this regard that we call upon trade unions, governments and progressive movements across the world to support, in one way or another, the Free Öcalan rally taking place on Thursday, 16th of July 2020. We reiterate our demands to free Abdullah Öcalan so he may play his part in guaranteeing peace in Kurdistan, just as Nelson Mandela did here in South Africa. In the words of our iconic steward, Nelson Mandela, to the Kurds, "I am part of the Kurdish struggle. I am one of you." I think it's an excellent and beautiful statement, and we'll make sure it's circulated to everybody. We're now on the issue of international solidarity. We wanted to give you a demonstration from a number of colleagues. We've had many more messages than this, but we're trying to keep it manageable. We're going to play you a short video with clips from Spanish, Italian, French and Irish colleagues pledging their support for the campaign.
My name's Sam Gurney and I'm Regional Secretary of the TUC in London, the East and South East. As a TUC region, we're really proud to be affiliated to the Freedom for Öcalan campaign, and I'm really pleased to be giving solidarity greetings at this event. We operate at a regional level, but internationalism is obviously at the core of what we do as trade unionists, and the situation in Turkey is of incredible importance. As someone who's of South African origin myself, I grew up in the Liberation Campaign for South Africa and the British anti-apartheid movement and the ANC in exile, and I absolutely understand the importance of support and solidarity for political prisoners. It's unbelievable that Ocalan has been in prison for longer now than President Mandela, and we have to support the campaign for his release if we want to see a just settlement for the people in Turkey of all different backgrounds. So we offer our support and our solidarity today. We will continue to work with the campaign and others to achieve that and to support our trade union sisters and brothers in Turkey as well. Good luck for this event.
Comrades, I am Patrick Correa from the Metal Workers Federation of CGT in France. I'm recording this video to ask for the release of Abdullah Ocalan, the founder and leader of the Workers' Party of Kurdistan. Abdullah Ocalan has been sentenced to lifelong prison with no respect of human rights and democratic rights. For that, we stand with all human rights NGOs, political parties and unions that are asking Turkey to release Abdullah Ocalan immediately. Thank you.
My name is Patricia King, the General Secretary of the Irish Congress of Trade Unions. Most of us have experienced self-isolation and lockdown in recent months due to the COVID-19 virus, and some of us have experienced great grief at the loss of loved ones. But COVID-19 is not our only threat. Dictators and brutal regimes the world over fear the threat of justice, democracy, and peace. These are the proud principles of the trade union movement, and we have always been prepared to take a stand to defend those who fight for them. We stood against apartheid in support of Mandela, especially here in Ireland. And that is why we demand freedom for Abdullah Öcalan and the Kurdish people. He made a stand for these values and as a result has been held in barbaric solitary confinement for 21 years. Please support the international trade union movement call for his freedom.
Comisiones Obreras de Industria, el primer sindicato de la industria de España, queremos unirnos a la reivindicación de otros muchísimos sindicatos del mundo y de las fuerzas progresistas y democráticas en general, que exigimos la liberación inmediata del compañero Abdullah Ocalan, miembro del Partido de los Trabajadores del Kurdistán, preso con una cadena perpetua desde hace años en Turquía. Porque solamente el respeto de los derechos humanos, el respeto a las libertades democráticas pueden garantizar que el conjunto de los pueblos en el contexto exterior de Europa puedan encontrar lugares de consenso democrático y de formas de existencia con respeto a los derechos humanos. Por eso ratificamos nuestra exigencia de liberación junto con el conjunto del movimiento sindical democrático de todo el mundo de Abdullah Ocalan. Adelante, compañeros y compañeras, porque solamente con las libertades democráticas podremos avanzar en garantizar derechos sociales, políticos, económicos, al fin y al cabo el conjunto de los derechos humanos, por la libertad del compañero Ocalan.
Friends and comrades, with this video as we want to raise our voice together with our comrades and colleagues of the other trade unions in Europe and the UK, who are raising their voice to ask the freedom for Abdullah Öcalan. Abdullah Öcalan is now in prison since 21 years in the island of Iran in complete isolation, with not even the possibility to talk to his lawyer. It was possible a few moments only last year after a strong mobilization that we have supported as well. And we call for his release, of course, for the respect of the human rights and also to stop the persecution of the Kurdish people. Abdullah Öcalan has spent all his life to build a peaceful solution for those territories who have been martyrized and destroyed by years of war. We think that giving him back his freedom is, of course, an answer in the sense of the respect of the human rights and the civil rights, but also a step in the right direction to build a real process of peace in the Middle East based on ecological transition, gender equality, who has really teach many things to the world in these years of struggles in Syria. So we call once again, free Ocalan, also to build a real process of peace in the Middle East and to give a sign to all the world. Thank you, Abdullah Ocalan, and we ask again for your freedom.
Look, it's again, I think it's a terrific display of some of the support outside, but we know we've got a lot of work to do yet to get other confederations and labour movements really active in the campaign and throwing their weight behind it. So if anybody is listening across Europe or in other countries or taking part, and your union or your confederation is not on board, please do everything you can to try and build support. It's vital that we really move to the next level and next stage in this campaign. Our penultimate message is a really important one. It's from Francis O'Grady, the General Secretary of the British TUC. Like all General Secretaries, many of whom have taken part with their messages, the situation right now is really difficult, and understandably they're absolutely concentrated on protecting our members and workers in the workplaces and lobbying government to take the right steps. But she took a couple of minutes out to record this message, and we're going to play that video for you now, and then we'll play an uplifting grassroots message from a lot of our members to bring our proceedings to a close. Francis O'Grady.
Hello, my name is Francis O'Grady. I want to bring you greetings on behalf of the whole TUC, the umbrella organisation for every independent trade union in Britain, together representing nearly 6 million workers. And together we want to bring you our support and solidarity for the campaign for freedom for Ocalan. The trade union movement in Britain is an internationalist movement. We know that an injury to any worker anywhere in the world is an injury to us all. And that's why over our history we've stood up for justice, from our campaign alongside our brothers and sisters in South Africa to end the evil of apartheid there, to more recently the campaign to free the Miami 5 Cuban men held unfairly in US jails and now reunited with their families and friends, to justice for Colombia, where we have long stood up for the rights of workers and their unions in a country amongst the most dangerous in the world to be a trade unionist. We stand by all of those who look forward to a more equal, more democratic, more just Turkey. And we are increasingly worried about the crushing of dissent. We are worried about the violence and appalled to see how the Kurdish people have been treated, and concerned about the incursions into Syria. We understand the importance of standing up for human rights too. And of course, Mr. Ocalan has been held in prison for so many years, most of them in isolation, away from his family and his comrades, an abuse, we believe, of his human rights. And so we want to send our support to you in this campaign. Freedom for Ocalan, working people around the world, stand united, and we will keep fighting until justice is done.
it's a great and inspiring message, and I would love to see the day when all national confederations can replicate that action. It's very moving and it's extremely powerful, and it sends such an important message to our colleagues over there that we're trying to support in calling for Abdullah Öcalan's freedom. So, colleagues, we're going to show one more video and then I'm going to make a couple of closing remarks at the end. This video is really to show you it's the length and breadth of the UK trade union movement. We've got a short video with some cuts in it that are really inspiring messages from our grassroots activists about why they believe this campaign is important and why they support it.
My name is Paul Peacock, and I'm branch secretary of Unite Savic Tit on Teesside, and I'm a proud unionist for 40 years.
Hello, my name is Louise Regan and I'm one of the national officers from the National Education Union.
My name is Siobhan Taja and I'm the General Secretary of the Wales TUC.
My name is Andrew Pearson and I'm the convener for Ford Bridgend Engine Plant.
My name is Taza, I'm a member of the GMB and a CAD from Halabja.
Hello, my name is Stephen Smiley. I'm Deputy Convener of Unison Scotland and Branch Secretary of our South Lanarkshire branch.
I'm Mark Columbini from ASLEF, the Train Drivers Union.
I'm a member of the Regional LGBT and National LGBT Unite Committees.
My name's Gaynell Samuel and I'm a Parliamentary and International Officer at PCS.
Hi, I'm Ronnie Draper. I'm the General Secretary of the Bakers Food and Allied Workers Union.
I'm Clive Tickner. I'm the Branch Chair of the London North West Branch.
My name is Zita Holborn and I'm the National Vice President, Public and Commercial Services Union.
My name's Sam Gurney and I'm Regional Secretary of the TUC in London, the East and South East.
I'm on the Public and Commercial Services Union National Executive Committee.
Hello, my name's Kevin Reynolds. I'm the Chair of the London Eastern Service Sector Committee.
My name is Deborah Ray and I'm the Chair of ASLEF's Women's Committee.
My name's Michelle Rogers. I'm the RMT First Woman National President.
These are challenging times.
Many of us by now have experienced self-isolation and how frustrating it can be.
As I record this message, we're about 14 weeks into lockdown, and to be frank, I'm finding it a bit of a struggle.
Many of us are experiencing some tough and challenging times right now. We know what it's like to be anxious, to be lonely, to be by ourselves, and to not be around those people who we care about and those that we love.
I'm asking you to spare a thought for those for whom isolation is not a choice.
I'm talking about political prisoners who are isolated in an attempt to prevent the spread of their values.
Values that we in the trade union movement share in common.
COVID is a threat to us all, but dictators and brutal regimes around the world
fear the spread of something else.
The spread of justice,
equity, democracy and peace.
Not being able to see your family or your friends, being limited as to where you can go when you leave the house and for how long. I mean, it's really difficult. So imagine then, just try to imagine not 14 weeks of lockdown, but 21 years of solitary confinement.
Abdullah Öcalan, the leader of the Kurdish liberation movement, made a stand for the same values, and as a result has been held in barbaric solitary confinement for the last 21 long years.
Who's been locked up for trying to liberate his people.
He spoke out against the Turkish government. He spoke out for what he believes in, something that we as trade unionists do every day, and a right that we perhaps sometimes take for granted.
I'm extremely proud of Unite the Union's participation in this Freedom for Öcalan campaign.
Unite and other trade unions, we know we've got a proud history of supporting international struggles for solidarity and social justice.
I first became aware of the Abdullah Öcalan Freedom Campaign at the Durham Miners Rally in 2018 against the T-shirt.
a real campaigning union, and we believe that we should be involved with the Free Ocalan campaign. This is a movement that's growing, really worthwhile cause. We'd encourage everybody in our membership to join in this campaign.
I was lucky enough to talk to some of the campaigners as well as some of the Kurdish people supporting the movement, and it is a very good movement to support.
Please join us in calling for freedom for Öcalan.
Solidarity to my brothers and sisters. Solidarity to you, Abdullah, and may one day freedom be ours. Together we will succeed.
Abdullah Öcalan has become known as the Turkish Mandela, and there are clear parallels, not only that they both have endured over 2 decades of imprisonment for opposing oppressive regimes on behalf of their people, but also because in the same way that we, the trade union movement, played a key role in campaigning for Mandela's release and opposing apartheid, we as a movement must now be key in campaigning for Öcalan's release.
We stood against apartheid and in support of Mandela. Today we must make a stand for Ocalan and the Kurdish people.
Join me in demanding freedom for Öcalan.
And peace for the Kurdish people.
And we have to support the campaign for his release if we want to see a just settlement for the people in Turkey of all different backgrounds.
Join me in demanding freedom for Öcalan.
Collectively, we can demand freedom for Öcalan and peace for the Kurdish people.
Please support the trade union Freedom for Ocalan campaign by sharing this message with your followers on social media using the hashtag
21 years.
Hashtag the time has come.
Hashtag freedom for Öcalan.
Join me in demanding freedom for Ocalan and peace for the Kurdish people. The time has come.
The time has come.
Time has come.
The time has come.
The time has come.
The time has come.
So, colleagues, I thought it was an absolutely fantastic and uplifting video, and we want to put on record our formal thanks to everybody that took the time to contribute. I know some of you are on the call now, others are not, but it's a fantastic contribution and display of solidarity. On the issue of thanks, I want to just mention a few people in particular. Matt Nathan, who you've not seen here, who is our campaign director, has done a truly unbelievable job in pulling the videos together and making this event happen. I think it's almost pushed him over the edge a couple of times, but he's really pulled things out of the hat and done an unbelievable job. I want to thank Claire Baker, who has chased people up no end and helped pull everything together in the preparation of it. Ruby, Ben and Aladdin, who've been monitoring the chats and just making sure we've not had any nasty far-right people or anything trying to break in here. I want to thank the International Initiative for Freedom for Öcalan, especially having Raima and Estella for all their help. To our fantastic speakers, Hisha, Lloyd, Elif and Christine. And I want to close with this. Our plea for you, and thanking all of you for taking part in it, is this: help us join the campaign, get your branches and regions affiliated, talk to people in your workplaces, lobby your MPs, and let's lobby the government. And I'm absolutely convinced, just as we succeeded in getting Mandela out and the Miami 5 and many of the Colombian prisoners and the others, we will succeed in this. There is nothing more important at the moment in the difficulties we've got. We cannot afford to become just insular and looking out only for ourselves in our own countries. We must not let them break our international solidarity. It's in our DNA as trade unionists and activists. It's more important than ever that we pull together in these difficult times. Let's keep the focus. Let's build this campaign as well. Freedom for Abdullah Ocalan. And thank everybody.